The Galactic Science Academy's central auditorium resembled a living nebula, filled with the gentle glow of various species from across the known universe. Floating orbs of light hovered above the curved rows of seats, designed to accommodate everything from tentacled beings to multi-bodied hive minds. It was the most prestigious learning institution in the galaxy, a place where only the brightest mind from thousands of civilizations could hope to study. Here, knowledge wasn't merely shared, it was revered, almost worshipped. The Academy's tradition of intellectual lineage stretched back tens of thousands of years, with entire species tracing their scientific enlightenment to an ancestor who once studied within these hallowed walls. Alex Monroe sat alone at the far corner of the lecture hall, the only human enrolled in the Academy's Advanced Theoretical Physics program. Unlike his classmates, whose neural interfaces flashed with calculations and whose augmented senses captured every quantum fluctuation in the room, Alex relied on primitive tools: a worn notebook made of actual paper and a set of graphite writing implements. His presence here was something of an anomaly, a diplomatic concession that most faculty viewed as charity toward a species still in its intellectual infancy. Professor Zirith, a tall, willowy being from the Arisari system, glided to the center podium. 7 translucent appendages extended from his core, each capable of manipulating multiple instruments simultaneously. His skin shifted colors with his thoughts, currently a calm azure that indicated focused concentration. As the Academy's foremost authority on relativistic physics, Zirith was both feared and respected, known for failing even the most brilliant students if they couldn't translate theory into demonstrable proof. Today, Zirith announced, his voice modulated to reach all auditory organs in the room, "We begin your final assessment." His color shifted slightly toward indigo. As advanced theoretical students, you understand the mathematics of time dilation. But mathematics is merely a language, not reality itself. The room fell silent. Even the perpetually buzzing Drex Hive unit in the front row ceased their internal communications. Your task is to demonstrate, physically demonstrate, relativistic time dilation. Zirith's skin pulsed with emphasis. No simulations, no holographic models. I want measurable, observable data that confirms Einstein's predictions were correct. A ripple of nervous energy passed through the room. Alex glanced around, noticing several students already interfacing with their neural nets, likely accessing design schematics or equipment requisition protocols. "You have 30 days, Zirith continued. "And to be absolutely clear, I'm not interested in theoretical expositions or virtual demonstrations. I want to see time actually slowing down. Until tomorrow, class dismissed." As the students filed out, Alex remained seated, scribbling frantically in his notebook. He didn't have access to the hyper-precision instruments that his classmates could requisition. He didn't have a neural interface to run billions of simulations in his mind. He was, by Academy standards, barely more equipped than a clever animal. The Khazari twins, identical beings with crystalline skin and reputation for brilliant engineering, paused by his seat. "Perhaps," said Jorel, the slightly taller one, "the human would like to withdraw from this assignment? Time is a complex concept for primitive minds." Laurel, his brother, made a tinkling sound that Alex had come to recognize as laughter. "Perhaps he can build a sundial. That's about the right level of technology, isn't it?" Alex said nothing, continuing his calculations as they glided away. He had grown accustomed to such comments in the 3 years since he'd arrived at the Academy. Humans were considered a curiosity, tenacious and occasionally clever, but fundamentally outmatched in this environment. After the hall emptied, Alex approached Professor Zirith, who was adjusting something in the air with 3 of his appendages. "Professor," Alex began, "I have a question about the assignment." Zirith's skin shifted to a mild yellow of surprise. The Arisari rarely engaged directly with humans, finding their linear thought processes too predictable to be interesting. "Yes, Student Monroe. Are there any constraints on the scale of the effect we need to demonstrate? Einstein's equations work at any speed, but the effect only becomes significant near light speed." Xeritha's color deepened slightly. An astute question. I require measurable evidence. How you achieve that is your concern. But remember, manipulation of time's arrow must be real, not simulated. Alex nodded, making another note. He knew what this meant. While his classmates would likely build elaborate machines with quantum entangled particles or microscopic wormholes, he would need to rely on classical mechanics. Somehow, he would need to create enough velocity to generate measurable time dilation, with nothing but what he could build with his hands. Back in his small dormitory pod, Alex spread his calculations across the floor. He couldn't match his classmates' technology, but he understood something fundamental about the academy that they didn't. Beneath its gleaming surface of advanced technology, the station generated enormous amounts of waste. Outdated components, failed experiments, materials replaced during regular upgrades. All were sent to the recycling sector. The next morning, instead of heading to the library like most of his peers, Alex descended to the lowest levels of the academy. The recycling sector was a cavernous space where maintenance drones sorted discarded materials before processing. Few students ever came here. Why would they, when they could simply requisition new materials? Alex approached the supervising AI. I need access to discarded components for a physics project. The AI's voice was flat. Unusual request. Students typically use requisition protocols. I'm not a typical student, Alex replied. I need mechanical parts, specifically high-speed motors, precision bearings, and timing devices. After a moment's calculation, the AI responded, request approved. Safety protocols engaged. Human physiology is fragile. Exercise caution. For the next week, Alex spent every free moment in the recycling sector, sorting through mountains of discarded technology. He salvaged motors from obsolete cleaning drones, precision bearings from decommissioned laboratory equipment, and timing crystals from outdated communication arrays. Each night, he returned to his dormitory laden with components that most academy residents would consider primitive garbage. In his room, a contraption began to take shape, ugly by academy standards but structurally sound. At its heart was a circular track nearly 2 meters in diameter, reinforced to withstand extreme centrifugal forces. Alex had repurposed a series of micro-thrusters to drive a small platform around this track, building in safeguards to prevent catastrophic failure. On the 10th day, he attempted his first test run. The platform accelerated smoothly at first, but as it approached 1/4 of its design speed, a bearing failed. Metal fragments shredded through the safety shielding, one slicing across Alex's forearm before embedding itself in the wall. Blood dripped onto his notebook as he made notes about the structural weakness. The medical drone that responded to his injury alert commented, "Human injuries are inefficient. Neural interfaces would prevent such occurrences." "Sometimes you learn more from failure than success," Alex replied, watching as the drone sealed his wound with synthetic skin. The next day, he was back in the recycling sector, seeking stronger materials. Meanwhile, the Drexhive unit had requisitioned an entire laboratory to work on their project. As a collective consciousness spread across multiple bodies, they excelled at parallel problem solving. They were developing a quantum entanglement system that would theoretically allow them to observe time passing at different rates between entangled particles. The Kazari twins had taken a different approach, working on a gravitational lens that would bend space-time itself. Their crystalline forms glittered as they manipulated equations in the air, occasionally glancing at reports about the human's activities with amusement. "I heard he's building some kind of primitive spinning device," Laurel commented during a meal period. Apparently, he was injured when it broke apart. Joral's crystalline structure shifted in what might have been a shrug. Admirable persistence, if nothing else. Though persistence without capacity is merely wasted energy. By the 15th day, Alex had rebuilt his device with reinforced materials. The circular track now featured redundant supports and improved shock absorption. He had also installed 3 sets of precision timepieces, 1 stationary control, and 2 that would ride on the platform. Each was synchronized to the Academy's central chronometer, capable of measuring time to the nanosecond. This test was more successful. The platform accelerated to half of its design velocity before Alex detected an alarming oscillation in the track structure. He immediately initiated shutdown, avoiding another catastrophic failure, but the data was disappointing. The time difference between the moving timepieces and the stationary control was barely measurable, swamped by instrument error. "Not fast enough," he muttered, returning to his calculations. He needed more speed, but increased velocity meant increased structural stress. It was a classic engineering problem, one that humans have been solving since they first built machines. On the 20th day, Professor Zeroth called each student group in for a progress assessment. When Alex's turn came, he presented his design and preliminary results with quiet confidence. Zeroth's skin shifted to a skeptical purple. "Your approach is rudimentary. It's based on classical relativistic principles," Alex replied. "No simulations, no theoretical models, just actual physical movement at high velocities. And your results thus far?" "Inconclusive," Alex admitted, "but I've identified the failure points. The next iteration will achieve higher velocities." Zeroth's appendages waved dismissively. "Student Monroe, perhaps you misunderstand the assignment. We are not reenacting primitive experiments. We are demonstrating mastery of space-time itself. With respect, Professor, that's exactly what I'm doing. Einstein's equations predict time dilation at any velocity. The effect simply becomes more pronounced as you approach light speed. My device doesn't need to reach relativistic velocities to demonstrate the principle." The professor's color darkened to deep indigo. "Very well. Continue with your contraption. We shall see what you achieve." That evening, Alex received an unexpected visitor. Joral Kazari stood awkwardly at his dormitory entrance, his crystalline form reflecting the corridor lights. "May I enter?" he asked, his usual condescension notably absent. Alex gestured to the room's only chair, continuing to adjust a circuit board on his desk. "I've been reviewing your approach," Joral said after a moment of silence. "It's unexpectedly elegant." Alex looked up, surprised. "Thank you, though I doubt your brother would agree. Laurel sees only the technological gap, not the underlying logic." Joral leaned forward, his faceted features catching the light. "Your approach relies entirely on first principles. No technological shortcuts. Sometimes the scenic route teaches you more about the landscape," Alex replied, returning to his work. "Why persist with such primitive methods when superior options are available?" Alex set down his tools and turned to face the alien student. "Because understanding doesn't come from tools. It comes from here." He tapped his head, and here he placed a hand over his heart. "I could requisition advanced equipment, but then I wouldn't truly understand what's happening. I'd just be following someone else's recipe." Joral's crystalline structure shifted slightly, indicating contemplation. "An interesting philosophy. Inefficient, but interesting." He rose to leave, then paused. "The bearing system you're using won't withstand the forces you're generating. Try reconfiguring with a magnetic suspension." After Joral left, Alex considered his suggestion. It was a good one. Electromagnetic bearings would eliminate mechanical friction at high speeds. He made a note to search for the components the next day. The final week before presentations was a blur of activity. Alex had completely rebuilt his device twice more, each time achieving higher velocities. The latest version used salvaged superconducting materials to create a magnetic track, allowing the platform to levitate completely. He had replaced the micro-thrusters with a more powerful propulsion system salvaged from a decommissioned shuttle's maneuvering jets. On the night before presentations, Alex ran his final test. The platform accelerated smoothly, reaching tremendous speed. The entire dormitory vibrated with the contained energy as the small payload circled the track hundreds of times per second. When he finally powered down the system, Alex carefully removed the timepieces and compared their readings. For a long moment, he stared at the numbers. Then, a slow smile spread across his face. The effect was small, just microseconds of difference, but it was real, measurable, and consistent with Einstein's predictions. He had done it. Presentation day arrived with a buzz of anticipation. The Drex Hive unit went first, their multiple bodies moving in perfect coordination as they demonstrated their quantum entanglement system. Through a series of complex visualizations, they showed how information appeared to travel at different rates between entangled particles when one was accelerated. Impressive theory, Professor Zirith commented, his skin a neutral blue. But what have you actually measured? The Drex spoke body hesitated. The simulation predicts. I did not ask for predictions, Zirith interrupted, his color darkening. I asked for measurements. Next group, the Khazari twins presented their gravitational lens, a beautiful crystal structure that bent light in mesmerizing patterns. By manipulating the gravity well, Laurel explained, we can theoretically demonstrate time passing at different rates through the lens. Theoretically, Zirith repeated, his color now a disappointed indigo. Show me your measured results. The twins exchanged glances. The effect is too subtle for current measurement techniques, Jorel admitted. But the mathematics clearly indicate. Mathematics is not reality, Zirith interrupted. Again, it is merely a description of reality. Next, one by one, each group presented sophisticated devices and theories, and one by one, Professor Zirith dismissed them for failing to provide actual measured evidence of time dilation. As the last of the conventional presentations concluded, his skin had darkened to an almost black indigo. Disappointing, he announced. You have all failed to grasp the fundamental point of this assignment. Science is not about what should happen or what might happen. It is about what does happen, what can be observed and measured. He paused, his appendages moving in a gesture of reluctant acknowledgement. There is one more presentation. Student Monroe. Alex wheeled his device into the center of the auditorium. Compared to the sleek, advanced technology presented by his classmates, his contraption looked almost comically primitive. A circular track with a small platform attached to various salvage components, all connected to a control system that appeared to be held together with actual adhesives. A murmur ran through the audience. The Drex Hive unit buzzed with what might have been amusement. The Khazari twins watched with expressions somewhere between curiosity and pity. This, Alex began, is a physical demonstration of relativistic time dilation. He pointed to 3 identical timepieces. These chronometers are synchronized to the Academy's central clock. One will remain stationary as our control. The other 2 will travel on the platform. Without elaborate explanations or theoretical digressions, Alex activated his device. The platform began to accelerate, slowly at first, then with increasing speed until it was merely a blur circling the track. The auditorium hummed with the contained energy as students leaned forward, many accessing enhanced visual modes to better observe the experiment. After precisely 10 minutes, Alex deactivated the system. As the platform decelerated, the audience waited in silence. Finally, it came to a complete stop. Alex carefully removed the timepieces and displayed their readings on the main projection screen. The numbers were clear. The stationary chronometer and the Academy's central clock showed exactly the same time. The 2 chronometers that had traveled on the platform showed a discrepancy of 21.3 microseconds. Precisely what Einstein's equations predicted for an object moving at the velocity Alex had achieved. The effect is small, Alex acknowledged, but it is real, measured, and consistent with relativistic predictions. Time actually passed more slowly for the moving chronometers than for the stationary one. The auditorium was completely silent. Professor Zirith approached the device, his skin shifting through colors so rapidly it created a strobing effect. He examined the chronometers, verified their readings, and then did something unprecedented. He bent his upper body forward in what humans would recognize as a bow. This, he announced, his voice resonating through the hall, is science. Not simulations. Not theories. Observation. Measurement. Proof. His skin settled into a deep, respectful green. Student Monroe has demonstrated mastery not merely of physics, but of the scientific method itself. Alex stood quietly beside his ungainly device, making no attempt to gloat or celebrate. In that moment of validation, after years of being dismissed as primitive, he understood something profound about knowledge. It didn't require fancy tools or advanced technology. It required only careful observation and the courage to trust what you see. The presentation caused a sensation throughout the academy. Within days, various departments had requested access to Alex's device for further study. The engineering faculty was particularly interested in how such a primitive construction could achieve the necessary structural integrity at high velocities. Most of Alex's classmates avoided him in the aftermath, whether from embarrassment or resentment, he couldn't tell. But to his surprise, Joral Kazari sought him out again. "I've been reconsidering many things," the crystalline being said as they walked through one of the Academy's arboretums. "My people have relied on technological advancement for so long that we've forgotten what it means to truly understand something." Alex nodded. "There's value in doing things the hard way sometimes." "You've changed how I see the world," Joral admitted. "I've requested permission to work with salvaged materials for my next project. Laurel thinks I've lost my mind. And what do you think? I think perhaps I'm finding it." A week after the presentation, Professor Zirith requested a private meeting with Alex. The professor's quarters were austere, dominated by complex mathematical sculptures that seemed to shift dimensions when viewed from different angles. "Your demonstration has caused considerable discussion among the faculty," Zirith began, his skin a thoughtful blue-green. "Some are impressed. Others are concerned." "Concerned?" Alex asked. "You have challenged fundamental assumptions about how knowledge should be pursued at this institution." Zirith moved to a window overlooking the vast starfield outside. "For millennia, the Academy has equated advanced technology with advanced understanding. You have demonstrated that this is not necessarily true." "I didn't mean to challenge anyone," Alex said. "I just solved the problem with the tools available to me." "Precisely." Zirith turned back to him, his skin darkening. "And therein lies the danger. You have broken the system, and systems will fight back before they learn to change." "What does that mean for me?" "It means you should prepare yourself. Some will seek to discredit your work. Others will attempt to co-opt it. A few might even try to understand it." The professor's appendages waved in a gesture Alex had come to recognize as emphasis. "You have inserted friction into a frictionless system, Student Monroe. And friction, while inefficient, is often necessary for traction." In the months that followed, Alex declined numerous opportunities to capitalize on his sudden notoriety. He refused offers to patent his design, turned down speaking engagements, and continued his studies with the same quiet determination that had characterized his previous 3 years at the Academy. He did, however, write a detailed paper entitled "The Value of Friction: Physical Demonstration of Relativistic Principles Using Classical Mechanics." The paper was notable not for its theoretical insights, which were well established, but for its meticulous documentation of the engineering process, including every failure, every readjustment, and every lesson learned through direct physical interaction with the materials. To his surprise, the paper was published in the Academy's prestigious Journal of Methodological Innovation, the first human-authored work to receive such recognition. 6 months after his demonstration, Alex received a formal invitation from the Interspecies Science Council, the highest scientific authority in the known galaxy. They requested his presence at their centennial gathering to present his approach to demonstrating relativistic principles. The council chamber was even more impressive than the Academy's grand auditorium, a vast space designed to accommodate representatives from every spacefaring civilization. As Alex stood before this assembly of the galaxy's greatest scientific minds, he felt a peculiar calm. He was no longer intimidated by their advanced neural interfaces or their millennia of accumulated knowledge. He presented his device, now refined and improved, but still recognizably the same crude construction of salvaged parts, and demonstrated once again the measurable time dilation effect. When he finished, there was a long moment of silence before the questions began. A luminous being from the Seacrop system asked, "If you had access to more advanced technology, would you rebuild your device differently?" Alex considered the question carefully. "No," he said finally. The purpose wasn't to create the most advanced demonstration possible. It was to understand the phenomenon at its most fundamental level. Truth doesn't need to be beautiful. It only needs to be accurate. The being's glow pulsed in what might have been approval. An elder from the Drek's hive mind asked, "Your approach seems inefficient. Wouldn't neural simulation provide the same understanding without the physical labor and risk?" "Simulation is a map, not the territory," Alex replied. "You can study maps your entire life and still be surprised by the actual landscape. There's knowledge that can only be gained through direct experience, through trial and error, through the resistance of the physical world to our ideas about it." As the questioning continued, Alex realized he wasn't defending just his approach to physics, but something more fundamental about human learning itself. The value of hands-on experience, of making mistakes, of encountering natural limits, and working within them rather than simply programming them away. When he returned to the academy, Alex found that his device had been placed in the institution's museum with a simple plaque. "Built by hand. Measured by time." No one believed. One person proved. The recognition didn't change his daily routine. He continued his studies, graduated with honors, and declined offers to join prestigious research institutions across the galaxy. Instead, he chose to work independently, establishing a small laboratory on an unremarkable world at the galaxy's edge. There, surrounded by salvaged equipment and hand-built instruments, he continued exploring the fundamental principles of the universe, not with the most advanced technology available, but with the most direct methods possible. His occasional papers caused ripples throughout the scientific community, not for their technological sophistication, but for their elegant simplicity. Years later, when a young academy student asked him why he chose such an isolated existence when he could command resources anywhere in the galaxy, Alex smiled and said, "Because truth doesn't need permission. It only needs courage. The courage to see what's really there, not what theory tells you should be there." The student considered this, then asked, "And have you found truth out here?" Alex gazed out at the unfashionable spiral arm of the galaxy visible from his laboratory window. "I've found that the universe reveals itself most clearly when you approach it with empty hands. No preconceptions, no technological filters, just open eyes and an open mind." Back at the academy, Professor Zirith continued to use Alex's demonstration as the standard against which all physics presentations were measured. When new students complained about the difficulty of creating actual physical demonstrations, he would shift to the deep green of absolute certainty and say, "If a human could build a working model from discarded components, surely you can do better with all your advantages." Most couldn't, of course, but every year, a few would set aside their neural interfaces and advanced materials, choosing instead to understand a principle so completely that they could demonstrate it with whatever came at hand. These students, regardless of species or technological background, would receive the highest mark in Zirith's class, a small green symbol that carried enormous prestige. Academy administrators eventually formalized this approach into what became known as the Monroe Protocol, a requirement that all theoretical demonstrations be accompanied by physical proof, preferably constructed with the simplest technology capable of demonstrating the principle. The protocol was controversial, with many faculty arguing that it unnecessarily constrained advanced species. But Zirith and his supporters maintained that true understanding transcended technological advantage, that if you couldn't demonstrate a principle with basic materials, you didn't truly understand it. Across the galaxy, Alex's approach inspired a movement, small at first, then growing, of scientists who deliberately constrained their technological resources to ensure they truly grasped the principles they studied. They called themselves frictionists, after Alex's paper, embracing the inefficiency and resistance of the physical world as essential teachers. And in his simple laboratory at the edge of the galaxy, Alex Monroe continued his work, uninterested in the movement he had sparked or the protocols named after him. When the occasional visitor made the journey to meet the famous human who had changed galactic scientific methodology, they often expressed disappointment at finding such an ordinary person in such ordinary surroundings. But those who stayed long enough to work alongside him, to build and fail and rebuild and finally succeed, left with a different kind of understanding, not just of physics, but of knowledge itself. Truth doesn't care about your technology. It doesn't care about your species' advantages or your neural processing power. Truth responds only to one thing: the courage to see what is actually there and the persistence to demonstrate it to anyone who doubts. On the 10th anniversary of his famous demonstration, Alex received a message from Professor Zirith. It contained no congratulations or reminiscences, only a single question: what are you building now? Alex smiled as he composed his reply, a way to see more clearly. He didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. Zirith would understand that Alex wasn't working on a new device or a grand theory. He was doing what he had always done, stripping away complications to reveal the simple truths beneath, building understanding piece by piece with whatever materials were at hand. In the vast complexity of the galactic scientific community, with its neural networks and quantum computations and civilizations that had been studying the cosmos for millions of years, there was still room for, and need for, the human approach. See, touch, build, fail, learn, rebuild, prove. It wasn't the fastest way to knowledge. It certainly wasn't the most impressive. But as Alex had demonstrated with a contraption built from society's discards, sometimes the most direct path to truth is also the most humble and the most reliable.